Hi, I'm Hannah from the Compost Culture. Over a year ago, I reviewed the Mill food recycler, and I absolutely loved it. But let's be real. Do I still use it every day? And more importantly, has it actually held up? Because let's be honest, everything works great in month one. It's what happens after a year that really matters. So today, I'm sharing my honest one-year update, the good, the bad, and whether I'd still recommend it. If you're new here, the Mill food recycler is a kitchen device that dries and grinds your food scraps into a nutrient-rich material you can reuse or send back through their system. When I first reviewed it back in January 2025, I gave it a rave review. It made composting easier, cleaner, and way more accessible, especially if you don't want to deal with a traditional outdoor compost pile. Fast forward a year later, and I'm still using it regularly. And honestly, that says a lot, especially because I still love my traditional compost pile and my worm bin. The biggest benefit for me is convenience, especially for meat, dairy, and cooked foods. The Mill makes it easy to keep those out of landfill. There's no smell, no bugs, and no dragging scraps outside. The Mill has also been amazing for things I don't usually put in my compost, like moldy food and citrus. Citrus is really acidic for my worms, so I tend to keep this out of my compost bin. And while some mold is technically fine for compost, I usually avoid adding this to mine. This gives me an easy way to still repurpose those scraps instead of throwing them away. It just fits into my everyday routine without making things harder. I've also become way more aware of our cooked food waste, which has really been an unexpected benefit. And I think that's the key with anything sustainable. If it's not going to be easy, you're not going to stick with it. This is easy. It works with your lifestyle instead of adding another chore. And honestly, it's not just for crunchy composters. It's an easy way for anyone, even guests in your home, to keep food out of the landfill. Now, let's talk about how it actually held up, because this is the part most reviews don't show. After a year of regular use, the machine itself still works really well. The grinding and drying functions are just as effective as when I first got it. But I've had some wear and tear, specifically on the lid. The lid has a bit of damage, which obviously isn't ideal, but surprisingly, it hasn't affected the performance at all. It still runs like normal and seals well enough to do its job. So while it's not perfect, it hasn't stopped me from using it. So here's where I land after a full year of using my Mill. What's still amazing, this is super low maintenance, it keeps my kitchen clean and odor-free, and it makes composting really approachable, especially for beginners. It's one of those things that just quietly works in the background. What's not perfect? The lid durability, at least in my experience, and the fact that it's still an investment. And depending on your setup, it may not fully replace a traditional compost system. It's also important to know this isn't actually a composter, it's a food recycler. It dehydrates and processes food waste to keep it out of the landfill. Because the Mill doesn't actually make finished compost, I don't use this finished product as compost, because it's not. I usually add it to my yard and bury it in areas where I'm not actively planting. You can also feed it to chickens, or you can send it back to Mill to be turned into chicken feed. I still put my fresh scraps into my outdoor compost pile or my worm bin. I also think it's important to talk about who the Mill is actually for. This is perfect if you live in a condo, apartment, or HOA, or you just don't want to deal with an outdoor composting system. It's also great if you want a cleaner, simpler way to reduce food waste without overthinking it. But if you already have a full compost system outdoors and you love using it, you may not need something like this. It really comes down to your lifestyle and what you're most likely to stick with. Personally, I like having my outdoor compost system and my indoor Mill. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to make sure that no food is sent to a landfill. So, would I still recommend the Mill food recycler after a year? Yes, with a caveat. It's not perfect, and the lid issue proves that. But the fact that I've used it consistently for over a year and haven't fallen off the habit, that's what really matters. Because at the end of the day, the best composting system is the one you'll actually use. If you're trying to waste less food or make composting easier, I'll link my original full review below. And if you've used one of these yourself, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments.